Well, good morning, everyone. Today we will be presenting on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and how to apply and the rest of the information that our presenter will be giving you information on today. Let's see here. Before we get started, I would like to go over some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. A recording will be available on our website at www.sanpabloedc.org. Any resources mentioned during the presentation will also be available on our website, or we can give you links to where you can find that information. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A box or in the chat, and we will answer them either during the presentation or at the end of the webinar. And right before we get started with our presenter, I'd just like to give you some background in regards to San Pablo EDC. Our mission is to develop, diversify, and stabilize the economy. Some of the offerings that we have and programs and services at San Pablo EDC is we offer workshops, education, and training for businesses, entrepreneurs, and individuals to promote health, equity, and economic mobility. Some of the programs and services are developed and delivered by our staff, as well as EDC partners such as today, the SBA. To support our advancement, we focus on employment and training support, home ownership, business resources, and access to capital. And just here, this is some of the offerings that we have. Business development, we'd like to connect our entrepreneurs and businesses to industry resources to start and grow their businesses. And again, access to capital. We do have a small nano-revolving loan fund at San Pablo EDC that goes up to $5,000 if we're not able to help our clients because they're looking for more capital. We then do referrals to our community partners. And I invite you to visit our website to learn more about that if you're interested in calling us and getting you connected to some of our community partners. And again, these are some of our resources: technical assistance, virtual workshops, pre-COVID time, mixers and business watch and networking. And again, visit our website if you would like more information. So to get started with our presenter today, I would like to thank our partner, Small Business Administration. Today, our presenter is Darlene Rios-Rapkin, and she will be taking it as we go to the next slide. If you would like to write down her information is here. And just keep in mind that this webinar is being recorded. So if there's any part of the presentation that you would like to revisit, it will be available on our website for you to replay. So welcome, Darlene. It's all yours.
Thank you, Sohi. Thank you for having me today, San Pablo EDC. You may have looked at my intro there and you see my number of 202. So it sounds like I'm based in Washington, DC, but I'm actually right around the corner, two blocks away from San Pablo EDC. So I am in the neighborhood. I eat at a lot of the restaurants here in the neighborhood. So it's very dear to my heart that we make sure we assist our local restaurants to ensure that they get the tools that they need to stay in business. So next slide, Sohi. So let's move on because I've got to get off at exactly 9:55 because I got to jump onto another presentation. So the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, what is it? It's part of Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan Act that became law on March 11th. Because restaurants had not been recognized throughout all of the stimulus packages that have occurred. So this act appropriated $28.6 billion to authorizing the Small Business Administration, which is the federal agency over all of this, to award the funds. Now, $28.6 billion could be a lot, but we have a feeling that it's going to run out. So that's why the urgency, and it's really good that San Pablo EDC is having me speak to you about it today, because it's really important if you're going to act on it, that you act on it quickly. So the appropriations will remain available until they're expended. The good news too is that the fund may be eligible for eligible uses no later than March 11th, 2023. That's really good. That gives you a whole almost 2 years to spend down the funds that you are awarded. Next slide. Who is eligible? Pretty much all of the type of businesses that work with food, such as restaurants, food stands, food trucks, food carts, caterers, bars, saloons, lounges, taverns, snack and non-alcoholic beverage bars, coffee shops and ice cream shops. Now, the next group, starting at bakeries, you need to be aware of it because we find that bakeries, brew pubs, tasting rooms, breweries and wineries may also be manufacturing items. Maybe they sell wholesale. They don't just sell to the public. So that's why this category, as you see, starting at bakeries, your on-site sales to the public need to comprise at least 33% of gross receipts. So that is something to keep in mind for those businesses, and it needs to be that it's sold to the public. Okay, so you see a lot of different businesses that are included. Next slide. Who is ineligible? Right off the top, state or local government operated businesses. As of March 13, if they're affiliated with more than 20 locations. So probably some of the big larger, like I would say, like perhaps like a Burger King or a McDonald's, are likely not to be eligible because they've got a lot of locations. Because if you have at least 20 locations, you're likely not able to be eligible. If you are also applying for the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, which is another tool that the federal government is providing, that the SBA is providing, that one was set up for businesses that have events that cater to public seating with the public. If you're a publicly traded company, if you've closed, permanently closed, if you're a nonprofit, if the amount you're going to get comes out to be less than 1,000, no sense in operating. So let me talk about being permanently closed. We understand that some restaurants and some of the catering businesses had to close for a while temporarily during the pandemic. That's okay if you had to temporarily close, but you cannot be permanently closed. Okay, next slide. How much? Okay, no, I think you're going, go forward. Okay, how much are you eligible for? The SBA may provide funding up to $5 million per location. That's a lot, not to exceed 10 million. And the minimum award is 1,000. So hopefully most of it, 99.5% are going to fall within the category to qualify. Next slide. How is this program different from other SBA programs? Well, that other program that I was talking about, the Shuttered Venue Grant, has you sign into, is much more bureaucratic. And remember, this is a federal government program, so bureaucracy is kind of part of it. Here's the good news. You don't have to register in the sam.gov, which is a government thing. It doesn't require that you have a DUNS or a cage identifier. These are all much more things that you don't need. So I don't even want to spend time on that. You do need to have valid unexpired ITINs. Valid unexpired ITINs are acceptable. Now, what's that all about? You need to really have been filing taxes, because if you haven't filed your income, when you file income tax, you get ITINs. That's the number that is issued by the IRS when you file taxes. And that's really important, that you will have filed your taxes in the last 3 years. There's an expectation that you have your 2019 taxes completed and that your 2020 are on the way, that you've started that, because you're going to be asked to complete something that requests a 4506T so that the agency can review your taxes, okay? Your tax forms. Next, who is eligible? Pretty much most, whatever way you've incorporated that you formed, most are eligible. I think this is pretty much most of all the different types of business structures that are available. Next slide. Regarding franchises, any business operating as a franchise and meeting all the other requirements is eligible. But remember, you can't have more than, if you have more than 20. I don't think the group here is going to be in that situation, but if you are, you can let me know. But you can look up the there's a SBA franchise directory where you could look to see about your eligibility. Okay, next slide. Did we jump? Okay. Bankruptcy. Applicants that are operated under an approved plan of reorganization are also eligible. Okay, because you're reorganizing, that's okay. But an applicant is not eligible. Remember, we already talked about being permanently closed. That's, you can't have done that. Okay, and then file chapter 7. If you're in doubt, I'm going to be giving my email or letting you know resources to find this out so that you can find out about your eligibility. Okay, so remember, permanently closed does not include businesses who temporarily closed their doors due to the state or local restrictions or other pandemic causes, but are still in operations or have reopened. Okay, próxima. Okay, so how do other SBA relief programs impact RF? Probably the most common tool that a lot of our businesses have tapped into is the Paycheck Protection program known as PPP. And that was set up so that you could help keep your employees. That any funds that you've received through PPP will be subtracted from your final funding amount. And that will be verified through your EIN, employer ID number, your ITIN, that was the IRS, or social security number associated with your PPP loans. So when you apply, actually, I think that it's supposed to be that the application is actually smart. It will actually know that you've applied for PPPs once you've put in one of these numbers. If not, it will ask you to manually enter them. But if an applicant applied for the first PPP loan for multiple locations under one IEN and subsequently applied for a second draw PPP, the applicant must provide EINs. It's really better to provide stuff up front than to think, I'm not going to provide it and see if the IRS or the reports it to the or the SBA knows. It's just better to apply and reveal this stuff, because if they find out, then it's not a good thing. So upon applying for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, RRF, applicant must withdraw any outstanding PPP application. So if you've got a PPP application in process, it's best to withdraw it, okay? So the applicant, so like I mentioned, the applicant must not have a pending application or have received one of that other tool, the SVOG. That's the only one that you can't be in the process of having if you're going to apply for RRF. Hope I'm not confusing people, but I will clarify if needed. Próxima, next slide. Okay, so this is the big thing of how we're asking people to certify. All applicants must certify that the current economic uncertainty makes the funding request necessary to support ongoing or anticipated operations. Okay, próxima, next one. So what are the eligible uses that you can deduct? A lot of things, you guys. So a lot of business payroll tax, including sick leave, business utility payments, business maintenance expenses, business supplies, including protective equipment and cleaning materials, business food and beverage expenses, including raw materials, covered supply costs, business operating expenses, such as insurance, marketing fees, licenses, legal point of sale equipment, etc. That's a lot of things that you can apply to this. This means you got to have been keeping good records too. Construction expenses, construction of outdoor seating. Now, expansion costs are ineligible. What does that mean? Say you're thinking, I'm gonna add a new store. I'm gonna add a new location. That is ineligible. We're not assuming that you're expanding. We're assuming that you're just trying to keep your current business afloat. So expansion costs are not ineligible. But that outdoor seating, which I think has been pivotal right now during the pandemic, is you can get that's an eligible use. Even business debt can be covered, but payments on any business mortgage obligations, both the principal and the interest, does not include prepayment or of principal or interest. Business debt service, both principal and interest, does not include any prepayments of principal and interest. That is information that is better supplied to you by your CPA as far as that eligibility. But as you can see, a lot of your expenses are covered. Next slide, Sohi. Okay, when do I have to use the funds? We talked about this. This is great. There's a lot of time for you to use these funds. As long as the expenses were incurred between February 15, 2020, which is the date that the federal government is using kind of as the beginning of the pandemic, and March 11, 2023. That's almost 2 years of expenses that this is a really good grant, because we're calling it a fund, but it is truly a grant to defray all of the challenges and the expenses that restaurants have, and caterers and all of the businesses that I mentioned before have been experienced. Now, if the business permanently closes after receiving the funds, the covered period will end when the business permanently closes or on March 11, 2023, whichever occurs sooner. Any funds not spent on eligible expenses by the time the covered period ends must be returned to the government. Okay? Next one. So when continuation, use of funds assessments. After the total awarded funds have been exhausted, entities must provide a detailed expenditure report and certification for the required period. We do not have details on what that detailed expenditure report will look like, but just keep in mind, you want to make sure you're keeping really good records and that you've got someone working with you, a bookkeeper or a CPA, so that you can make sure that you've got really good expenditure reports so that you can justify the use of your funds. Okay, so until the applicant completes the uses of the funds assessment, beginning December 2021, applicants are required to provide self-reported unaudited data detailing use of distribution funds each year through 2023. So in the meantime, I think that what I'm understanding, and all of these details are still being sorted out, how it's implemented, you will want to be completing report, providing information. And by the way, you can use all of the funds before March 2023. If you've used them beforehand, I would suggest you report it right away and get that out of the way. Some of you may already have spent so much of your funds right now just to stay afloat, right? To do that that outdoor seating and what have you. So you don't have to wait till March 2023 to report. You can do it beforehand. So the SBA will provide additional guidance that outlines the detailed reporting requirements and procedures in the incoming weeks. So that's why I said, well, I don't have the details of what the report looks like yet. Okay, next one. So how do I calculate my potential fund? I don't know that I want to get too deep into this because this is getting into the weeds and I think it gets complicated because I myself have not completed one of these applications. But here's some rules on it. Applicants in operation prior to or on January 1st. You have to have been in business by January 1st. This is for calculation one. You would use calculation one on January 1st, 2019. And what you do is that your 2019 gross receipts minus your 2020 gross receipts minus your PP loan amounts. That is really the calculation. Now, in that gross receipts, does not include your tips, by the way. Keep that in mind. I have been asked that question a bit. Okay, next calculation. So these are different calculations that you can use if you want to do some napkin math of what you might be eligible for. Applicants that began operations partially to 2019. And that's because you're going to have to do some, it's not the whole calendar year, right? You're going to be trying to look at some, if you were only in operation for 6 months, you've got to use some different figures. So your average 2019 monthly gross receipts times 12 2020 gross receipts minus your PPP loan amounts. So the applicants that began operations partially in 2019 may choose to use calculation 2 or calculation 3, which we're about to show you. However, calculation 3 could require longer processing times. So when you're working with someone to figure this out, you're best off using calculation 1 or calculation 2. Let's look at calculation 3 next. Calculation 3, applicants that began operations on or between January 1st, 2020 and March 10, 2021, and applicants not yet open, but have incurred eligible expenses. We know of some businesses that were starting to open during the pandemic and then they weren't able to open because stuff happened. Those are the folks that kind of have expenses that they've incurred from their startup. And so now they can come back and recoup some of those expenses through this grant. So the total amount spent on eligible expenses between 2020 and March 11th, 2021, minus 2020 and 2021 gross receipts, minus PPP amounts. Okay, so applicants that began operations partially in 2019 may choose to use calculation 2 or calculation 3. Again, calculation 3 could require longer processing times. I really suggest on this one, you work with a bookkeeper or with a CPA, or we're going to talk about some SBDC resources at the end that can help you with this. Don't rack your brain out right now figuring it out, but you may need help to sort out what is the best formula for me. Okay, next slide. So what can I exclude from the 2020 gross receipts? Do not include any of the following in your 2020 gross receipts: your PPP loan, your first or second draw, your SBA section 1112 if you're already tapping into some of the wonderful federal resources that are available to you. The SBA, some of you may have heard of the EIDL loan, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which is a really good, by the way, product if you need a loan. It's a really good to explore. That's another thing we could talk to at another time, Sohi, about the EIDL loans, the EIDL Advance, any other state or local business grants. Because remember, it's not just the federal government providing loans to all of you. There's also the California grants. San Pablo may have Richmond. Around here, a lot of the cities have also been cognizant of the relief that you guys need. So that stuff is not included. Okay, so any of those need to are excluded. Okay, next slide. So how do you apply? The platform to apply opened yesterday at 9 a.m. And by the way, it was really busy yesterday. The website did not crash, but it did have some challenges because there are a lot of people applying. Okay. So you can apply directly through restaurantssba.gov. Now, another way is through a point of sale vendor. For those of you who might use Square, and I don't have, somewhere in here, I have some of the other ones. I don't have those handy. There's a few of the other vendors. I need to look that up if people ask. The other point of sale vendors that you can go through. Why is this a good thing to do? Because if you've been accepting credit cards and most of your sales have not been cash, but they've actually been done through these point of sale vendors, that's a good thing, because then they can provide you the receipts and you don't have to do a lot of the calculations yourself. Now, you may have had a combination of the point of sale vendor alongside with cash. So then you have to add those two together. But the beauty of going through a point of sale vendor is that you start off through their website, through their platform, and they provide you the gross receipts. And then you don't have to do some of the extra work of providing your own reports. Okay. Now, there's a number, and this number you want to keep available. It's really great that the SBA is actually providing a number, a hotline that can also answer questions for you. And so that number is 844-279-8898. And this is a really important number that you can call, and they are getting very experienced in answering basic questions on this. On any questions that you have about how to do this application. If you go to the platform and you start getting a little bit like overwhelmed or stuck, you can use this phone number to ask questions. I don't know right now how busy it is. Sometimes these numbers get very, especially right now, because this is the first day, exactly 24 hours that people have been applying. So, but this is an option for you. Next slide, and they'll even accept telephonic applications if you don't have internet, but I would hope that most of us here in the area have internet. So what documents are you going to need in order to apply? So what you want to keep at your fingertips and have available, the form that you need to use is the SBA Form 3172, completed, initialed, and signed. Completion of this form, you do it digitally. You can do it online on the SBA grant platform. Okay, so you can find this online and complete the form directly. Verification for tax information. Remember I talked about the I-10 number? Well, that's that you're going to need to complete this IRS form 4506T, completed and signed by the applicant. It can't be signed by someone else. It has to be signed by you, the owner. Completion of this form is done digitally. If any of you have ever refinanced any other sort of loan, you would typically have to fill this out because that's how they verify that you've done your taxes, okay? Then you're gonna need to provide that gross receipts documentation. And any of the following documents demonstrating your gross receipts and, if applicable, eligible expenses. Your tax returns, that's like the Schedule C or Schedule F. There's all different ones, right? That depending on how you file taxes. Your bank statements help. Externally or internally prepared financial statements, such as income statements or profit and loss statements. Those point of sales reports. Remember, like I was talking to you, that you could go through people such as Square, and I'm gonna have to find who are the other ones. Somewhere in here I have who the other three, Corvell and NCR. There's some these other point of sale vendors are the ones that you can work with that can provide you your gross receipts. Okay, but that is helpful if you're working through one of these vendors to provide you this. There's also something called a comfort letter from your CPA. If they can provide you, if your CPA can provide you a comfort letter, it is called, that certifies the numbers that you are providing, that is really good to do, because then that is like they don't have to go back and review your forms. I'm sure a CPA will do it in a really good organized fashion, and that will strengthen your application. Because anytime the SBA has to review this and the stuff doesn't look orderly, it may get kicked back and delay it, and that's what you don't want. I have really learned that when you apply for anything through government, you want to dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure that it's right the first time, so it doesn't get kicked back. Because if things get kicked back, it will delay it. And since we don't know how long these funds are going to last, it's really important that you do it right the first time. Next slide, Sohi. So again, what is required? That application, the tax verification form, 4506T, to know that we've done your taxes, your gross receipts, which is either in your tax returns or point of sale. You're gonna need 3 months of bank statements to submit. Why do we do that? That is the 3 most recent months. We need to see that you're in business. Now, if you've been if you've been closed down the last 3 months, it's whatever you have that's most recent is what you're going to provide, okay? 2020 gross receipts, at least one, your federal tax returns filed, your point of sale report, externally or internally prepared financial statements, such as your income statement or your profit and loss, signed and dated and certified as to the accuracy by the applicant. Okay, next one. More things for calculation 3, which is the one that's a little bit more complicated. You need that same form, the same tax verification, the 3 months of bank statements supporting your account, because you can link your account to this program. Let's see, your 20 and 21 gross receipts, preferred, your tax returns. See, now it gets small print. I need a lot of stuff because this is calculation 3. 2020 tax returns file, or your 2020 prepared but not yet filed, your point of sales reports for both 2020 and 2021. Your eligible expenses documentation, at least one, and required appropriate supporting documentation for specific eligible expense types, preferred. There's that CPA comfort letter. This is for the more sophisticated calculation, but I'm saying if you can get a comfort letter from your CPA, I'd say submit it anyway. It's just a good thing that your CPA has verified. It's one short step from audit, is having this verification from your CPA. Okay, accepted but may delay review past 14 days, because remember, we want to turn around these funds in 14 days. Externally or internally prepared financial statements, such as an income statement or profit and loss statements, signed and dated and certified as to accuracy by applicant. Eligible expense documentations, invoices, payroll documents, etc. Okay, next. What documents? We're still talking about documents needed to apply. This is giving you the whole realm of things that you might want to supply. In addition to the documents on the prior slide, for applicants that are a brew pub, a tasting room, tap room, brewery, winery, distillery, or bakery. Why is that important? Is because remember that we mentioned some businesses also do wholesale, and maybe they don't their public consumption is, it has to be at least 33%. So they're gonna need to show evidence that for business, that you have at least 33% of gross receipts of on-site sales to the public. Okay, next slide. How do I get help applying? You can call that number, the 1-844-279-8898. You can call your local SBA district office. I am part of the local SBA district office, and I will be available to you. And at one point, so he will go back, not yet, go back to slide number 1 to provide you my email and my phone number. And by the way, I am a native Spanish speaker. If anyone wants to talk to me in español, falo portugués también, and I can dabble in French, but I don't think we have a lot of French entrepreneurs here. But if we do, I would love to chat with you in any of those languages and help you out to the extent that I can. We have folks at the SBA district office that speak Chinese and Vietnamese and Arabic too. So we know that if you're watching this presentation that you speak English, but if you have a little bit of comfort level that you like to speak in your native language, we can accommodate you to help you out to go through the application in a language other. Also on the website and even at that hotline, we are accommodating multiple languages. So if there's anybody that you know that wants to call and see if there's someone that can help you or some written documentation in, I think it's up to 10 languages that we're helping out with, and I don't know them exactly right off the top of my head, but we can provide you help in multiple languages, okay? See? Okay, so best practices when completing your application. I'm gonna read through this because this is really important stuff here. Provide complete documentation. Applications with incomplete documentation will be rejected. Remember when I was talking about that crossing the T and dotting the I? Really important you get it right the first time. Don't do it alone. I think I know so many people that decide I can figure this out on my own, or I'm gonna call the SBA district office and just ask the question. Work with an advisor or someone to make sure that someone else is looking at what you're doing. The review process will restart when complete documentation is provided. Delays will jeopardize the applicant receiving the award. So some people may have rushed to it and applied yesterday, and if you didn't get it right, it's going to hurt you, okay? So leverage your resources. While not required, the use of CPAs and other accounting professionals may help ensure a complete and well-documented application. Remember I talked about that comfort letter or about providing certified income statements? It's better to provide any information that will give your application more credibility, okay? Application corrections. SBA is not able to make corrections on behalf of the applicants. If you, and I see this all the time, people calling us here at the district office, oh, we didn't do it right the first time and now we want to submit corrections. You'll need to call that hotline, but good luck. It's better to get it right the first time. I just know that you can try to make a correction, but it's going to delay you. So when in doubt, wait and get it right, okay? That's my suggestion. Applicants who still intend to apply for PPP, you are advised to complete your PPP application in advance of the RRF application, okay? PPP, by the way, is supposed to end at the end of May 31st, but we have been warned that the money is probably going to run out this week or next. So it won't go till the end of May. It's likely to end any day. So if you have a PPP application in the process, move it along or withdraw it if you've decided to go with RRF. So, okay. So when can you apply? So you can apply now. There was a pilot period where participants were randomly selected from existing PPP borrowers who self-identified as member of the RRF priority groups. And the priority groups are, by the way, the first 21 days is, you see here, okay, hold on a second. Pilot participants will not receive funds until the RRF is open to the public at application line. So prior to the period yesterday, we were using some pilot businesses so that we could fine tune the program. Because remember, this is unprecedented. We've never done anything this before. So we're still learning and changing on a day-to-day basis to accommodate questions that maybe the SBA hadn't entertained, hadn't thought was going to happen. So the priority days, we're in it now. So today is day 2. The SBA will accept applications from all eligible applicants. Anybody can apply as of yesterday. However, the applications from small businesses owned by women, veterans, and socially and economically disadvantaged applicants will be funded during this period. The good news is a lot of the businesses that are likely to be in San Pablo and Richmond, thanks to the amazing diversity in our area, are likely to be the ones that qualify to apply now. So please, I'm so glad that San Pablo EDC reached out to us now, because we want our traditionally socially and economic disadvantaged businesses such as you to apply first and get priority. That's called equity. So we really want you to apply immediately and take advantage of this 21-day priority period. Because trust me, all of the applicants around the Bay Area are applying, but they have to wait after the businesses that we just talked about. So day 22, all the eligible applications will be processed and funded until the program funds are exhausted. And it is our understanding that $28.6 billion nationally is going to go quickly. Okay, next slide. Going back to those priority groups, a small business concern that is at least 51% owned and the management and daily operations of the applicant are controlled by one or more individuals who are women, vets, or socially and economic disadvantage. Applicant, and that sometimes it's living in zip codes in a lot of our neighborhoods here, qualify because you own a business in an area that's considered to be in need. Applicants must self-certify on the application that they meet eligibility requirements. For example, an applicant who has 5 owners who each own 20% of the applicant, 2 owners are veterans and 1 is socially and economically disadvantaged individual. So it has to be up to 51% that the business is owned by women, vets, and all of this. Okay, but if you're the sole owner and it's just you and you are Vietnamese, you're likely to qualify. Okay, next. Socially disadvantaged individuals, I'm going to give you a better definition of it, are those who have been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudices or cultural biases because of their identity as a member of a group without regard to their individual qualities. Individuals who are members of the following groups are presumed to, oops, did I move? Next one, so okay, are presumed to be socially disadvantaged. Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, including Alaska Natives and Native Hawaiians, Asian Pacific Americans, or subcontinent Asian Americans. Economically disadvantaged individuals are those socially disadvantaged individuals whose ability to compete in free enterprise system has been impaired due to diminished capital and credit opportunities as compared to others in the same business area who are not socially disadvantaged. Next. So eligibility as a priority group applicant, entity reorg for purposes of qualifications will result in automatic disqualification of the award. So if you reorg yourself in order to qualify, so in other words, right now, maybe you are a white male and you suddenly add your Latina wife as an owner, as a owner to reorganize so that you can be in the priority group, the SBA is going to notice that. It has to have been prior that you had this minority member, owner, okay? Next, So funding set aside, $5 billion is set aside for applicants with 2019 gross receipts of not more than 500,000. So we are trying to accommodate businesses that are smaller. An additional $4 billion is set aside for applicants with 2019 gross receipts from 501 to 1.5 million. An additional $5 million is set aside for applicants. So the bottom line of this is we're trying to demonstrate that we are trying to take into account small independent businesses because you matter. So SBA reserves the right to reallocate these funds at the discretion of the administrator. And trust me, our administrator, Isabel Aguirre, is very cognizant of the needs of small independent businesses. I myself am too, because I come from the tradition of working on 23rd Street and a lot of the neighborhood to make sure that our small independent businesses, especially minority, are recognized. So I'm so happy. I don't have any influence on this, but this makes me very happy that this is the way the SBA is treating these decisions. Next. So there we have it. Do we have what time is it? So we have some time for. Do we have anybody in the audience at this point, or?
It looks like we have some participants, and you guys unfortunately are not able to speak, but if you can write your question on the chat box or in the Q&A box. In the meantime, I'll give you a few minutes if there are questions. I'll go back to Darlene's information. Let's see here, so that you can write it down. And as Darlene mentioned, if you are in need of, on one-on-one help with the application or just getting information, you can definitely either reach out to Darlene or to us. We do work with other CDFIs and other organizations that are doing one-on-one advising and helping individuals with the application. So if you would like to reach out to any one of us, we are more than happy to help you with the application or not understanding what a certain form may look like. We can help you with that as well.
So let me add on that. I really believe that a lot of our small businesses don't take advantage of the SBDCs. That stands for Small Business Development Center, yes. The Renaissance Center, which are women's centers, a new America. There's so many of these nonprofits, CDFIs, that are funded through the federal government, through SBA. They are here and provide one-on-one advisors to support small businesses. And I feel like a lot of small businesses end up going to their family to borrow money or go it alone. And they do not take advantage of these resources that are there for use to help your small business. Small business represents about 70% of the whole US economy. It's not the Amazon. It's not the Walmart. You are the lifeblood of this country, all of you together. And we want you to take advantage of the SBA and the SBDCs, which, as I mentioned, they are funded through the SBA to be local resources for you, to provide you one-on-one advice, not just on loans, on marketing, on restructuring, on legal issues. They are there for your use. And I've worked with the SBDC and Contra Costa SBDC, and I was always disappointed to not see enough of our small, especially minority businesses, taking advantage of this available resource. So especially for this application, this is a good moment to not go it alone and try to figure out what is probably a bureaucratic application and maybe above what you're doing. Your role is to make magnificent food. It's not to be applying for these things. So please take advantage of these resources that I suspect are going to be very good. Work through the San Pablo EDC to connect you to the right resources to complete these applications in your language. They likely have advisors that speak your language, be it accounting speak, be it restaurant speak, or be it just a native language. So take advantage of that, you guys. Okay, please.
Thank you, Darlene. Yes, so please take Darlene's advice. We do welcome any questions, any type of, clarification that you may need. As she mentioned, we do work with SBDC Contra Costa. We work with other CDFIs that are more than happy to have us connect you with them for one-on-one advising for these applications. So please reach out, and we will connect you with the individual that either speaks your language or we feel like would be a great connection to make to help you through this. Like Darlene mentioned earlier, you shouldn't do this alone. There are definitely a lot of resources out there, and it'll just make it a lot easier for you if you just reach out. It doesn't.
Please don't decide this is too much work, I don't want to do it. You have worked hard with your small businesses. You have fed my stomach and my soul, and I really want you to apply for these for these resources, for these grants.
Take advantage of this. Definitely, please. We don't want you to think, oh, do I have to just get started, and once you have someone by your side, it'll just be so much easier than doing it alone. So
consider the SBDC an extension of your business. They are there to support you, and we encourage you to take advantage of these resources that are available to you so that you can apply for this. Remember, the first 21 days are for socially and economically disadvantaged restaurants. Like I'm sure some of you that are on this call are on this webinar.
Definitely. It looks like you did a really good job with your slides, Darlene, and presenting the information. It doesn't look like we have any questions, but if anyone does have questions later, maybe some right now you can't think of any, please email us. We will be more than happy to answer any questions you have as we help you through this fund. So again,
SBA, aquí estamos y no nos vamos. Take advantage of us.
Thank you so much to Darlene and SBA for partnering with us and delivering this really important information on this fund. We wanted to, make sure that everybody knew. I know that maybe you've heard of it, but you didn't really know how it worked or how to apply. And so we hope that this presentation has given you a little bit of more, motivates you to apply, just because now you know exactly what is needed. And again, it is recorded, so if there's something that you want to go back to, it'll be available in the next few hours on our website. And again, we can't stress it enough. Please contact us if you need help one-on-one. We have the resources for you, so we could definitely do that. Thank you, Darlene. And I know that you have another presentation in Spanish coming along. So I'm going to give you, I think since we don't have any questions, we'll let Darlene go and she can get ready for her next presentation in Spanish.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes.